Welcome back to Worlds of Tennis, presented by BNP Paribas. Jon Wertheim and the editors from Tennis.com, Peter Bodo, Tom Perrotta, and Andrew Friedman discuss Rafael Nadal and Novak Djokovic's rivalry.
Well, one thing we can all agree on in tennis is that the sport benefits from rivalries. And on the men's side, we have a great one in Rafael Nadal and Novak Djokovic. They played almost 40 times. It's almost double McEnroe and Borg, if you can believe it. Where do you see this rivalry going?
Boy, this has got to be continued attached to it. It seems like at the end of every year. I mean, it's pretty extraordinary. On paper, really, it's heading toward Chris Martina territory. You know, these guys are going to be sharing a bagel in a locker room before the U.S. Open final when they're both like 35 years old. You know, it's a wonderful rivalry. I think the matchup between the two of them is great. It'd be nice to have maybe a little bit more contrast in there. I think what's really going to kick in here from here on forward is, in an ongoing way, stamina, strength, and longevity are going to become issues. You know, whichever guy is going to be stronger in the long term, primarily physically, but also a little bit mentally, ultimately too, is going to be the guy who comes out on top.
I love how much momentum really gets into this rivalry. It's been very streaky, where one player wins a bunch in a row, then Djokovic can't lose anymore, and then now Nadal owns him again. And it seems like they make these little adjustments. They win one big match, and then they're sort of off and rolling again.
I mean, to me, it's almost impossible to predict what's going to happen this year. You know, they're so tight. There have been these swings. It's almost like this hot potato. You know, of who's up, you know, and they can't hold on to it, you know, even though it's a good thing. And they give it to the other guy, and then that runs for a while. So I don't know, it does, to me, if I had to pick, I feel like Rafa's going to have the better year in the rivalry. It feels to me like that's where things are at the moment, and it also seems to me, as you watch them over the long haul, that Rafa's built a little more for the long haul. You know, he spent all those years at number 2 with Roger, you know, never got discouraged by being, you know, right there but not quite number 1. He's gone up and down a little bit. He just seems to ride out whatever it is. You know, he's out for 7 months with the knee. So it feels like if he stays healthy, I just feel like he's much more steady in the long term, and Djokovic is a little more up and down.
Now we seem to be at this interesting place where at some level it's about X's and O's and whether Djokovic can shorten the court and take away the down the line backhand, but really, I think this is so mental right now.
I think the interesting thing from Nadal's perspective is, I would say you're not reaching by saying this is the first tennis player in his entire life since he was a kid who's been in his head and been a consistent problem for him. Because even Federer wasn't a consistent problem for him. He's always had the advantage. He's always been beaten everybody he's played more often than they've beaten him. And he's got that on this guy, but it's really tight. And I think it's a weird thing for him. He's never quite had that.
There was a moment in the small group interview after the U.S. Open when Nadal ended up, you know, talking to a bunch of us, and I think, Tommy, you were in a room there, and at the very end of it, he literally like shook his head and something like, you know, sometimes I don't even know how I beat this guy. And he really meant it sincerely. It was a very, very, you know, revealing confession. And I'm not going to make too much of that psychologically, because I think Nadal is the best fighter in the game, bar none. However, I agree with him when he said that, because I don't think I've seen a more better balanced tennis player than Novak Djokovic. Backhand, forehand, everything. The guy, exactly. The guy is so well-rounded and so bulletproof. Now, there's a little bit of a moth flame thing for him going there, which Nadal does not have. Nadal just wants to win.
This is a very, very rich plot line to follow as we go to 2014. When Nadal and Djokovic play next, it will be their 40th head-to-head match, which is amazing.
Thanks, Tennis.com.